and recording.
Hey guys, this is a new attempt to try to help our time on Sunday mornings be more effective for our small groups. And so what I thought I would do is shoot some 2-minute, 3-minute videos that would introduce the lesson and kind of walk through the questions I'm asking so that you're not just getting a piece of paper on Sunday morning and trying to guess the direction Johnny wants us to go with the discussion. And so as a result of that, I decided we'll do this video. I think we'll have a little bit of fun with it. We'll try to shoot the video from different locations so that it looks different every week, and maybe we'll even play a game of try to guess where Johnny is. This week's lesson is based on Genesis 12:10 through 20, and this is the story of after Abraham had been called out by God to go to the land that God had promised to him, and after he had settled down in the Negev, he runs into a drought, and while he's there in the midst of the drought, he decides to take his family to Egypt. On his way to Egypt, he recognizes he has a problem, and the problem is that his wife is hot. When he recognizes that the men of Egypt are going to be attracted to her, and that it was a common tradition for a pharaoh or a king to kill the husband and take the wife if she's attractive, he decides that he needs to come up with a story to protect his life and help God to keep his promise to him. And so he decides on the way that he will have Sarai tell Pharaoh and tell the men of Egypt that she is his sister. Now that's only kind of a half lie because they have the same father, so it really is kind of a case of she's kind of his half sister. You know, one of those little lies that teens are good at telling. And so on the way there, he sets up the plan, and they get there. She tells them that she is his sister, and Pharaoh takes her into his harem, and she's in his house, and God sends plagues to Pharaoh's house so that Pharaoh recognizes the fact that he should not have Sarai in his presence anymore. And so he brings her back to Abram, declares the news that Abram should have said from the beginning. He says, Abram, here is your wife. Get out of my country. And so he is forced to leave the country. Well, now let's talk about the group questions that we're going to have. I have it so we're going to lay out with these narratives. We're going to walk through the narratives first and then come back to the questions and kind of reflect on the lesson. So here's the group questions and kind of the way I was thinking as I wrote the questions. The first question is, what were the promises given to Abram when he was called by God? And so specifically I go to Genesis 12 verses 1 through 3 where God says, I will give you a land. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. I'll bless those who bless you, and I'll curse those who curse you. And so I would walk through Genesis 12, 1 through 3 again with my group and have them discuss those things. The second question is, in what areas of the promise given by God in Genesis 12, 1 through 3 did Abram show his lack of faith in God? So in this story, how does he show he doesn't really have that faith in the promises God had given him? And there's three specific promises that I see Abram kind of balking at. The first one is this: the promise that the land God would give him would be good to dwell in. Remember, God had told him where to travel, where to settle down. God told him where to be. And so they run into this drought, and the first thing Abram thinks is, I have to get out of here and go somewhere else. We'll see next week, by the way, that in the midst of that drought, in that very land where he was told to settle, that there were plenty of lush fields and places where he could have stayed and taken care of his family there. The second promise that he balked at was that through Abram, there will come a great nation. With giving up Sarai, he really was giving up half of the nation-making team. By giving her over to Pharaoh, he was in essence, taking away the means for that promise to be fulfilled. He should have had confidence that Sarai would be fine in Egypt because God had promised that through them was going to come a great nation. The third promise that he kind of balked at was that God would bless those who bless him and curse those who cursed him. And so had anything happened in Egypt, he should have had the confidence that God would take care of them. Third question is, why do you think it was easy for Abram to forget all the promises that God had given him? You know, they were in the middle of a tough time, and it seemed like God wasn't there. It's not like in the beginning when God came and talked to him and appeared to him and told him where to go. They're in the middle of a famine. He's worried about feeding his family, and so he gets scared and he forgets about God's promises. And even though God had told him all these things and he had all this faith to get up and to walk away from everything that he had been established in, When it was tested, his faith was weak. The next question is to get to the personal level with a teenager. And what are some of the instances where you're confronted with the opportunity to show your faith and you don't show it? And I really want you to think through that question before you even come to the lesson time, to be able to give an example from your own life of how your faith is weak at times, and to encourage your kids to talk about that. Then the last question is, what are some of the promises that we often ignore in order to protect ourselves instead of trusting God? And so I listed out the Beatitudes from Matthew chapter 5, 3 through 12. And I think if you just walked through those, you would get some good response from the kids of how they don't follow those promises. They don't think about those promises. And instead they get extremely short-sighted. So if you want to see the answers typed out that I have for those questions, look at the teacher lesson. Otherwise, on Sunday, you'll get the piece of paper with just the questions on it. But I hope that this video will be a help to you. Have a great day.